we
We're
are.
back again.
Yeah, we are. We're having another great show, and we're getting ready to close up our year. We're into, in our November season here, and seasons are changing. But boy, we got some new batch of artists coming again. New experienced artists. A lot of some of the people that we do bring back occasionally, and just we see their progress from. Are they progressing right after 3 years? We've been on the air for 3 years, our show, and Carol Wylie will be joining us today. Here she is. She's a Master of Fine Arts from Vermont College, Fine Arts, and she's got a Bachelor of Fine Arts degree from University of Saskatchewan. And but she also got a psychology degree from U of S as well. So she's put all that together into she's a portrait painter, and I call her, she's a compulsive portrait painter, figure painter. And she's kind of, I guess I tried to figure out how to write this a little bit, but she's her started with charcoals, and they're a little like a brush that like a sculptor uses a chisel. That's kind of how she just, it feels that way, like she just works her way around the until she gets the figure the way she wants, right? You just keep removing, adding, and she's always just searching for that, I guess, that inner reality, where truth prevails, like that kind of thing in a figure. So we're going to talk to her about how she gets inside a model's head a little bit, and that conversation or not conversation that's more almost telepathic at times between the artist and the model, and how do you pull out that trueness of that person, because people can be kind of artificial. They want to put a fake smile on or do this little thing. If you wait a while, it relaxes and things happen, and pretty soon you find the real person inside the figure. Let's bring Carol in and we'll talk to her a little bit about that.
Yeah, let's do that. So say welcome, Carol. You said briefly before we started you're one of our very early guests. So that was.
I believe I was the second one when this started. So I just didn't know it had been 3 years since then. Time goes by so fast.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for for supporting us and coming back on the show. And I'm sure it's going to be some interesting stuff. And as Paul said, yeah, if people want to go back to back, they can go right back into the library that we have. On the channel and look at this early one, and then look at this one as well, and see whether or not you make your own conclusions as whether or not Carol's progressing or not. But have a great show, people, and until the next time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Well, good day to you. Thank you. Thanks for joining us. I mean, it's not that often we have an artist back. Usually we're looking at new artists and bringing them up, but when I start seeing your work, I guess excel. I mean, we talked a little bit with David about in the intro, and it's just trying to understand that model and artist relationship. Like they're even if it's kind of temporary. Can you speak to, like, we've did this early on, and we'll go through show people some of the early stuff that you did and the preparatory, and I'll call it preparatory stuff to get to where you are today. I mean, it's a grind. It's always searching who's you, and trying. Each model is a little different, and trying to figure out, where that comes into play. Like, can you speak to some of that a little bit about those early years and the development of your craft?
I mean, I know that in the intro you talked about compulsion, and I think that's a really big part of my practice, is that at no time in any time during my practice have I ever been interested in anything else but figurative and portrait. And the longer I practice, the more the portrait work even tends to take over, because of that connection between myself and other people, and investigating consciousness, investigating what makes a person, what makes their I that they have inside of them theirs, and how we're separate, and how we bring ourselves together. And all those questions are part of what I investigate. But what I've been finding out over the years is, once you work with the competence of what you do, that you get so practiced that you feel that you don't need to think about the mechanics of making a good piece of work, then you can settle back and then intuition starts to take over. And when the intuition is set to play, those connections kind of happen quite easily, both with the sitter when I'm working with them, and then afterwards when I'm working with the imagery. And what I think I've discovered is that intuition, like anything else, is something you need to practice to get better at. And so these now I'll put on a really divertive podcast while I'm working, so I'm not thinking about what I'm doing, and that allows the intuition to sort of come forward, and just things just kind of happen. And those connections that I have with that person, I don't put them there. I just get out of my own way and they come. So,
does that change with the different models that you have, and
I mean,
your process, or is it a similar process you go through, like a routine? Is there a bit of that set up that way you do?
Well, I think that again, that's an intuitive thing. So it depends sort of on what kind of connection is made at a sitting with somebody I don't know, or if it's somebody that I've known for a long time. Of course, that's already in place. But what I find is quite interesting, and this has happened for years now, that even with someone I don't know, when they come in for a sitting, and we'll spend a couple of hours together, because that's my preference if I'm able to meet with someone live, and we'll just chat and I'll sketch, and it's not a formal sitting, we're just getting to know each other, that within half an hour they're often telling me very intimate details about their lives. And it's this sort of this it's like when you're feeling low and you force yourself to smile, the physical smiling makes you feel better. It's like we're in this intimate position where we're close to each other, and I'm staring at them, I'm looking at them really intently. It's like it creates this intimacy immediately, and then I'm being told a lot of different things, and I'm a vault. I never say anything afterwards, but it's interesting how quickly intimacy can develop in a situation like that.
It's like hairdresser syndrome, it's kind of like you're sitting in with your barber or your hairdresser, and the conversation goes into all kinds of things. You think, why did I just talk about that?
Exactly.
You're comfortable. Somebody's taking care of you, and they feel comfortable that you're looking for I guess, not necessarily the best side of them, but you're looking for the true side of them.
Exactly. Exactly.
You find that sometimes, do you find that sometimes the figure doesn't look like they think they're going to look like? Like, does it come out like that sometimes?
Oh yeah, there's many times that I've had somebody come and see a portrait of themselves, and they're not quite sure it's them, and then their family member will be there and go, "Oh no, that's you. She has captured you." So, but then we don't get to see ourselves the way others see us. That's part of the intrigue. Part of what fascinates me about portraiture is we identify so strongly with our facial image, but we can never see it the way other people do. We can only see it in reverse in a mirror or on a camera, and all those are things that can be adjusted, can be changed, can be moderated. To experience ourselves the way we do others is impossible. So we don't know what we look like, really.
Well, I think it's important that, if people are really, I guess, looking for themselves a little bit, it's nice to go and have a portrait done of it. It's not a pretentious thing. It's not a thing that you say, "Oh, I need a picture of myself." You say, "I could leave that to my children or my wife or husband or whatever," right? And say, "I don't have to have that portrait in my house if I don't want it." But the thing is, there's a perception of that maybe the true side, depending on who. It's sort of like getting your doctor or your mechanic. You got to get the right one to do for the right job. And not everybody is proficient at that. I mean, you do teach as well, do you not? Drawing
do.
And that's called. So if in the area, if you want to take one of Carol's classes, that would be amazing for you as well, because you'd be able to learning from maybe some of the things. I guess it's some of the pitfalls that you can go through, like trying to replicate a person as a photograph rather than let like you said, your intuitive part come in, where you really become sincere to yourself as well. Like it's a healing not only for the artist but also for the sitter. I see. Is that how you sort of see what's going on?
It's very much so. And I mean, because I don't have the time, people don't have the time to have someone come sit for me day after day after day. So after the initial sitting, I will work from photographs. But there comes a point, and I talked to my class about this, about that the photography is a tool. It helps you to make sure that you're getting you're getting close enough to the resemblance of the person that they are actually present in the piece. But there's a point where when I feel they're there, when I feel I have them, I throw the photo aside, and then I start working on the painting. And it becomes much more sort of about, maybe it's putting more of myself into it, because it really is kind of a hybrid of both the sitter and the artist. And I don't want to be a slave to that photo, because the photo is a two-dimensional version of that person, and I want the three-dimensional person that I experience time with to be on the canvas.
I'm going to get David to start our first image up here, and then we can roll some images here and stuff here that's going on.
It's actually a good place to start, because I do regular self-portraits. This is a self-portrait many years ago, and that's whole sort of investigative process of connecting with other people. It's kind of a marker for yourself over the years too, of connecting with yourself to do a self-portrait. So I try to do one at least every year.
There, a lot of artists do that. I was never really good at doing that. I never, for some reason, I didn't get it. I've done a few, and they've been, to me, just terrible, just because I don't do enough of them.
Right.
But I think it's now, you're now the sitter. It's really funny, because you're now the sitter in front of a mirror that you normally would see yourself replicated, but flipped the other way, right? So this is a real head twister when you think about the psychology and the presence that is coming out of a piece of work when you work. Was this some of the early stages of just, let's get the charcoal out and do? I mean, some of these I thought were quite large pieces. We'll show a couple of other ones here, but
this one's a small one, but there are some large pieces.
Is this a good spot for an artist to start? Is just get the black and white, the charcoal, and start there before they get into a bunch of color?
I absolutely, and I tell my students that as well, especially my drawing students who have aspirations to paint or who already do paint, is that even in a painting, the most important thing is the value range, because the form is described by the value, not by the color. And once you have a handle on that, you can really work with any colors you want to make the piece work, as long as you rely on the fact that it's, I remember one artist saying that color gets all the glory, but a value does all the heavy lifting. And I think that's really true. So if you can get yourself really practiced up and your skills honed in terms of working with value, then you can bring the complication of color in, because it is a major complication to then start bringing color into a piece as well.
Yeah, I mean, it may look more dynamic, but if you haven't got the design down and the value structure, it's not going to hold together whether you add color or not.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, a lot of what I teach my students is that learning to draw well is learning to see well, that we have lots of shortcuts that the brain does that tells us that things look a certain way before we've even looked at them, and then they're wrong. They're not depicted the way they are. So it's somehow shutting down that quick access the brain wants to go to, that make a quick assumption and really take the time to look and see what's actually there.
So when you start a portrait, do you work with like a monochromatic tonal pattern, like a pigment, say an umber or something, and you just do something down in washes to start with and then layer up from there? Is that how you would do it? Or
I do layer. I don't really, again, it's kind of an intuitive process. I will sketch in the figure or the portrait and make sure that I feel the person is there, that I've got things correct, more or less correct. And then I'll just start to work from two extremes. I'll add in some light areas, I'll add in some dark areas, and the colors will shift and change over time. But it's not really what I would call a grisaille or a brunei. It's not a monochromatic painting. It's already working with some of the colors I will be working with.
Yeah, when you're doing the color, when you're doing your color stuff.
Yeah.
Most of what you do now is color, and I think we're going to show a whole bunch of stuff that's coming up here. So this is, now, were these done on manila paper or something?
No, these are on Stonehenge. And I used a graphite powder, and they're quite large. I think they're like 6 feet by 4 feet pieces of Stonehenge. Yeah. And I would lay them on the floor and put graphite powder on, and then wipe the graphite powder all around so that you could sort of see my movement in the way that the graphite is added, and then go back in with the eraser and remove the lighted areas to sort of have the piece emerge. And this was sort of some of my grad school work, and it was essentially I was talking about the how invisibility starts to creep in for women over a certain age, and so I thought I was going to turn that on its head and use erasure, like rather than the erasing of women from culture, I would use that erasure process to actually bring them back, and on a very large scale.
Yeah, it feels very sculptural, like
Mhm.
in the retraction of bringing the highlight in and working that way, because you can keep removing a little bit, then remove a bit more, and say, no, that's a portion of everything. Keep going around. It's
Yeah, it's
got
kind of reverse sculpture because rather than removing what I want to not be there, I'm removing what I want to add.
yeah,
Yeah.
but it does give it's a different way of your mind to think, because when you do a drawing, it's additive.
Yep. It's one of the exercises that I do with my drawing classes. We do one class where they do
Yep.
this, and a lot of them they find it helps to sort of interrupt that brain wanting to automatically do things that are not correct, because it forces them to think a different way. And some of them will choose to work that way for several classes just because they really like the way it works for
And
them.
I think a lot of it, they tend to work with the tip of their pencil, which is very linear,
Right.
and rather than laying it down on its side and think about volume, shape, and mass, to feel that, working around the figure that way. I think
Yeah.
they're great exercises, and I think people can maybe look at some of that.
For
Boy,
sure.
don't we all remember these days?
Yeah, yeah, that was a series I did during the pandemic where I noticed that people were posting selfies of themselves on Facebook and Instagram with their whatever mask they'd chosen as sort of a form of showing their identity and sharing that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And also, it became very political, right? Because there were such anti-mask movements, and then people who chose to wear them because they wanted to protect themselves and protect their community. So these were very small. I did a whole series of them. I have about 70 of them altogether because people kept sending me images, and they're just 10 by 10 canvases. And they're meant to be exhibited all together en masse so that it's sort of the individual voice is just a tiny little thing, the individual choice, but put together with others, you have a very powerful kind of statement around taking care of each other and the health of the community and that kind of thing. So
So
yeah, I did.
you had people send you photographs.
I
Of
did. And
them.
for me, I mean, what the pandemic was such a strange time for all of us, especially in the early days. And I found I needed to be in the studio. My house is very small, and all the other artists were staying home. So I went to my studio, and I was the only one there. So I was able to keep accessing it. But I didn't have, everything was so discombobulated. I didn't feel like I had the focus to work on massive paintings. So I thought, but I can focus long enough to do these little 10 by 10 pieces. And so when I sort of twigged on this, and then as they kept coming in, I just kept painting them. So,
Has,
and
have you
I sorry,
shown these? Have you shown these as a
I
collection?
haven't I haven't shown them yet. I would like to. I did have them up in the hospice in Saskatoon. Monique Bloom, who's the artist in residence there, asked me if I would put them up there, and they're up there for a while. So I got a chance to see what they look like installed all together in a grid.
Yeah.
And yeah, they look sort of the way I wanted them to. I wanted them to be individual pieces that read as one big piece when they're all together. And the other flip side of this was, of course, the challenge of doing a portrait that resembles the person when half the face is covered.
Yeah. Well, I like some of these because they were the customized. A lot of people made their own masks,
They did.
which they didn't want these ones became, you could wash them and reuse them, and everybody's so worried about the fiber and will the virus come through the cloth and
Yeah.
all the different things, and we had all these disposable ones became a whole other issue in itself,
Yes,
like
that's true too.
of masks.
What
And
interested me with these ones was that people were using them like clothing to reflect their identity and reflect who they are and their style. And yeah.
well, it's surprising. It's sort of like when you look at typography. If you cover up the bottom part of the letter, you can still make out what the letter is. And
Right.
you get the same thing with this mask. If you cover the bottom part up and you see the eyes and the look, it's still the person. You can still,
Yep.
you can tell who somebody is, just by doing that. And
Yep.
it's kind of a neat way of how your mind fills things in,
It's
right?
true.
Yeah. Even though you may never have seen that person before. But let's see what else we got. Okay,
And this was one of my dad. This is a larger one actually that I did of my
you have
dad.
your, you have your dad in a number of these pieces that will come up. It's a very humbling thing to be able to have that, to be able to have your parent. Like, I haven't got any portraits of my parents. Never took. I'm not a portrait painter, but to, to have that is very special. Like,
Yeah,
those
I
things.
think fathers and daughters, I think, have a very special relationship. And I just lost my dad about a year ago. And before the pandemic was an interesting time because my mom was in long-term care, so we couldn't see her live. And so dad was by himself, and my partner and I were doing our best to go do all his grocery shopping because he was in his 90s and we didn't want him out in the grocery stores, and trying to get him to wear a mask and like all the things that you do with an older person when something crazy like that happens. And so just dad and I created an even stronger connection at that time because he was all alone and I was the one that was sort of going to be the one that was going to be with him during that time when, so he wouldn't be completely alone. And yeah, and I just find him really inspirational. I find his face really interesting. And I think I'm not done yet. I don't think either. The last piece I did was just before he passed away. But I think I'd like to do at least one more.
Yeah. I don't think limiting yourself to that. Oh, I will do one and only one. You never know. You get 1, 2, 3. It's kind of, it's a whole other discovery of the, you're going into an area that maybe when someone has passed away, that's so close to you, your mind moves in different ways because you're now, you're putting in things that I think are in your mind that you think your dad looked like or that he represented.
Right.
There's no pictures of it, but it's still, once you get past that, get over that wall, right, in the work. And I think it happens not only in portraiture but in other works. Like, it's sort of like when you see people who paint the same subject over and over in versions of it again and again, and you see it's all changing subtly and becoming truer to themselves anyway.
Right.
Here's
Oh,
that.
here's the installation photo of the works. That's not all of them because we ran out of tall ladders. We hadn't put up the top row or two.
It'd be right down to the floor. Yeah.
But this is a sense of how it all feels together.
Yeah, that in itself becomes a challenge as to how you would set these up. And I could see these even being very linear, like around the whole room, like a
Yep.
Or in a corner on each side of a corner. So yeah, the ladder is good to be able to put in one spot, but sometimes spreading them out is magic too, because you have larger pieces that could go with this as well. But
yeah, no, I'm quite happy with how it turned out. It's sort of the way I envisioned it is the way it feels to me, where you can feel this whole thing that is almost this team that's battling this unknown disease and keeping each other safe and keeping the community safe. But then you can go in and look at these individuals as well and see how different they are. How there's men, there's women, there's all ages, there's child, there's it represents such a vast cross section of our society. So
no, they almost feel postage stampy at this size, little postage stamps, and I think it's kind of like you said, it's magical, and you kind of want to, you just go through the little characters and you look through them. They feel very caricature like at this stage because you can just, there's lots and lots of them, right?
Yeah.
It's like you said, they're not by themselves.
No, they're individual voices that are amplified in working together. So
I like this as, I'm just looking at this as it's like an installation. He said, now, if you took the hypothetical and you removed a couple of key ones out of there, what would it say to you? And if you took some out and put them outside of the perimeter of the rectangle, like they're missing out of there's a lot of, it's got magic stuff you can really play with. I think you could almost make a kind of a heart out of it. Like, there's just all kinds of, like, this is the beginning stages. I think I'm only seeing like this is stage one, even though it took a lot to make this presentation. It's like, wow, I could do this with it. And this
it's true.
Yeah.
And right now it's in a box in my basement, so really it could end up being anything.
Well, multiplicity is a magic thing. Like when things of similar size and shape and I would say substrate of whatever you're making, and you think, well, it goes beyond what it actually is when it becomes multiplicity, because then the multiplicity takes over. What did you make from it? And yet it's made up of this,
Yeah.
whatever. And
Yeah. And I think the other layer of this piece was, in working through the pandemic, was the labor of the artist, that I think that we sometimes, especially with one piece, we lose the time that the artist has put into not only developing those skills, but then actually creating the work. And, when you hear someone say, "Oh, you're so talented," and I want to say, no, this is 30 years of working hard. This isn't talent. And when you see something repeatedly like this, you can sort of think about doing 70 individual pieces starts to speak to that labor a little bit, or make it a little more visible, maybe.
right. Now people always say, "Oh, how long does it take you to do these things?" But do some sittings take longer than other ones? Like,
Always. I mean, sometimes a piece just comes. And I mean, my goal, like most artists, is to do as much as I can with as little, to distill the imagery to whatever extent I can to get what I want with less time and less paint and less whatever. But yeah, some people, I have a really hard time actually capturing them, and I won't stop till I feel like they're there. So, and others just come really easily.
Do you go up and ask people, "Would you sit for me?" Is that one of or do people come would say, "Can you do my portrait?"
I have in the past, if I saw somebody interesting. When I was working at the Mendel many years ago, I did that a couple of times, but I don't do that very much anymore. Sometimes people come to me and ask me, or sometimes I'll tell them I think they would be interesting if I'm talking to them, and they'll come to me later and say, like, I'll have had students or whatever, or models. And there's some models I've painted numerous times because I find them so interesting.
Right.
So yeah, it happens in different ways.
Yeah. So is this acrylic or watercolor or?
No, this is all oil.
You do all oils, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, this is a beautiful piece. It's got a I don't know what it is. It's a humbling piece.
This is my dad again, of course. And the funny thing about painting my dad is that I think in some ways it's almost like a self-portrait, because he and I take after him physically a lot, and he and I have had very similar personalities as well. So it's almost like I'm doing a self-portrait through genealogy in some ways. So I just find him really interesting. And he was a lovely man. And so I just feel like I love his face, and I love painting it, and it's sort of the way he was.
So do you have a kind of so-called, I hate to favorite portrait painters, or people that that you aspire to and say, well, this person does really nice work. I like to see what they are doing or have done in the past. Is there some other people that you kind of personified that you like?
Well, I have inspirations. I mean, I'm very inspired by the work of Egon Schiele, although my work is not like his. Just the way he used line and the way he used the whole distillation process. That sometimes I have one piece that I show my class all the time when I talk about composition, that he has done a portrait of a man in a hat similar to this actually, and all you see are the face, the hat, the two hands at the bottom of the composition, and the lines of the suit jacket connecting the face to the hands. The rest is all blank. Yeah. And how it feels like such a complete piece. So I think his use of line, his use of exaggeration, and his use of distillation, I find really inspirational. And in terms of color and working with oil and the layering of oil, Lucian Freud work was always really sort of inspirational as well.
Right.
So
what do you think of like Jenny Saville?
I was going to say Jenny Saville is another one. And this, I mean, I wish I had the space to work the scale that she does, because I know a lot of her pieces are like 9-10 feet high. And again, she's there's a real brutality about her work that I quite admire. I'm not sure I could go there quite to that far, but I quite like it. And Alice Neal is another one who again worked sort of with exaggeration and line in a really interesting way.
Well, yeah, taking the figure to the next level. It's not a lot of their work was the point. Was the person really happy about that actual portraiture? And I don't think at that point the portraiture was all about, it was for the artist only. Like they didn't really care about the model. You're paid to sit and do whatever I do with it. A lot of her nudes are a little are raw, and they're and I think some of the early more works they're almost gruesome at a certain point, but she's pushing.
Yeah.
And being acclaimed by all kinds of people around the world and doing all these things, but that doesn't mean what you do isn't good, right?
No,
you don't
of course.
go down. There's few people that go down that road. There's a lot of people go down that road but never become famous. They just it just for themselves or for whatever it is. I said, if that's in you, if that's what your searching is about, if you look at Freud's work, it's it's the same. They can be brutal pieces within the pigment, just, but they are the subject matter, whether the model is with a dog or whatever, or modeled, just the angles. I think a lot of it was the design of the page, and he would take forever to, I don't know how a model ever sat for him as long as they did.
Yeah, well, multiple times, like for months and months and months, I think. But yeah, it's that understanding. Well, first of all, that the human body is a lot, like it has bruises, it has veins, it has imperfections. Like, I mean, that's just the truth of the frailty of the human body. So why avoid it? If you're going to be making work about people and about the human body, you have to think about that. And the other thing is the bones, which is part of what I'm so attracted to with Egon Schiella's work. And a lot of portrait artists or figurative artists pay attention to this too, is that underneath all of that flesh and blood and muscle is this skeletal support of like we all have. And that still shows. I mean, you can see, even in the one of Dad here, you can see the cheekbones, you can see the brow bones, you can see the wrist bones, the shoulder bones, like all of that is the body is hanging on all of that. And I find that really fascinating and beautiful. The sort of lines that happen from those, the skeletal structure, I find really beautiful. So I try to look for that in my work too. This
one feels very still lifelike. Like it just, and part of it's the setting. I think this breakfast or meal setting a little bit. It's sort of like I've seen other ones where it's still life in landscape, where you take one subject matter and then you bring another one as part of it. This one is completing a conversation and a situation. What was the presence of this one with the meal?
This was my dad's 94th birthday. And I wasn't actually there. This is one I didn't get a chance to actually be with him. But my brother took this photo, and I thought, I really loved the photo. And I mean, Dad, you can sort of feel the withdrawal. His hearing was bad. He had dementia, and they had taken him out to a nice restaurant for a meal that he did love to eat. Dad really loved to eat, although you can see how thin he is by this time. And so this is his 94th birthday. So these are balloons around him. But I'm also sort of starting to play with abstraction in the sort of environments that my figures are in. So playing with a balance of representation that feels somewhat realistic combined with abstraction. And this is sort of an investigation into that.
Yeah, you feel that plenier area where there's, the angles of the edge of the table, the background, and a slice at the top of the page. They mirror what the color of the tabletop is, and they bring there's some warmth, I guess, also with the yellow sweater and the balloons, and it's a very harmonious piece. And there is it feels very peaceful. It is a very peaceful piece, and I kind of, yet it's celebratory with the balloons, and it's very subtle. They're not just big red balloons and stuff which dominate a page, right? And people wondering, what is the subject really here? And I think sometimes, do you do journaling as well with some of your works, like written information about it, what you're trying to get across in a work?
I actually don't. I do, like I quite repeatedly update my general artist statement around my practice as things occur to me, but individual pieces, no. But this piece I did feed into. What is that? There's a AI that you can feed an art piece into, and it writes a description for you just out of interest. And I was quite surprised at how accurate the description was when it came out. I haven't done it again. I just did it out of interest, and I've never used it for anything.
And once you do it, it remembers that. And it's just like,
I'm sure.
But it's really nice to know, though, that you yes, artists, you can update your CV and your statement. You don't have to leave it. If it feels like you need changing, change it.
Oh, I mean, the seed show that I did years ago, and I don't think I have any images for that on this one. I have rewritten that statement over the years because things have occurred to me over time when the work has been shown, and I've talked to people, and I think, oh, I have to put this in the statement because this is something that I just now understand. So I think it's important to keep updating it.
I think people, I've gone through that, and I'm presently going through it. The same thing, doing things that rewriting, rethinking, because if you do a body of work, it changes.
Mm-hmm.
And it can change due to political environment, social environment, how you naively produce a piece of work in the beginning, and now it's morphed into something else, and you can't control it. It's just you walk into the room again, and you go, oh, it's different today. I don't know what it is about it, and all this information comes through into your head and back out again, and you look at something in context to that, and it's really, yes, you can change, and you can change the title of your show, and yes, you can change, move that picture. Does not have to be next to the next one like it always was in the previous show.
Yeah,
you can change things up. The one part that I hate about it the most is a writer. Now the writer writes a book and you think, yeah, I read that book. Pretty soon they got a new cover on it, and you think, oh, another book by that writer. Buy the book. I read this book, and it's got a different cover on it. Right. And it's edition this, edition that, right? They change it for the editions and they freshen it. And he said, you really mess with the readers unless they're really aware, oh, I actually read that book.
right.
Kind of picked by the color of it. It's like buying coffee. I always go to that part of the corner and it's red and blue, and I pick it up and I buy it, right?
Yeah.
And you forget, oh, I better read the labels.
Yeah. Well, we're dynamic beings and we're changing all the time. And being a singer as well, and being that my vocal instrument is physical, and my instrument in my art practice is also physical, attached to my body. And one thing that my vocal instructor always says is, this is a different instrument every day. It'll depend on how much sleep you've had. It'll depend on what the weather's like. It'll depend on whether you're warm or cold. And I think a lot of those things, I often think if I go to the studio on a Tuesday and I start a painting, if I'd started that painting the next day on the Wednesday, would it end up being a different painting? Because I'm a different person on that Wednesday than I was on that Tuesday.
Yeah.
So there's so many unknown factors when you're kind of working with your physicality, because who you are and how you feel changes so much from hour to hour, never mind day to day.
Yeah. I think routine is one thing, but sometimes it's not too good to be too routined in everything you do. But it's nice to have a comfortable way to get back in your studio and do your work.
Mm-hmm.
I love this one with the Superman. I mean, here he is, your dad, and I think he is super, right? He's your hero.
He is. That's what was so funny about it, because he was the place he was staying. He was in a care home in Winnipeg, and you know how they are. The laundry goes in, and you get the luck of the draw. Whatever they bring to your drawers is what you get. And my dad, in his lifetime, would never have worn a hoodie, never mind a Superman hoodie. But it seemed so apt when I saw him in it. I thought, well, that's just perfect.
Yeah. Oh, it's fun. It's fun to see.
This is one that is a few years old now. This is some of the work that sort of is connected to some kind of a societal issue or a little bit of political leanings. The subject of this piece, Maliha, is an Afghan woman who escaped when the Taliban took over. And she came to me, I'd been working with her at Ramey Modern, and asked me if I would do portraits of the 20 Afghan women who were here, who had escaped and were living in Saskatoon. This was in January, a couple of years ago. Again, she wanted it for August of that year because that was the second anniversary of the fall of Kabul. And I said, I can't, Maliha, I can't do that many portraits. And she wanted large ones in that time frame. So I went to Betsy Rosenwald, and I said to her, do you want to share this? Because she does portrait work too. And she had a brilliant idea, which was, why don't we get 20 female artists and each of them will do one? And so that's what we did. And we put together a show of these women, and we had it up on the anniversary, that 2-year anniversary that Maliha wanted to hit.
Yeah.
And it was a great show. It was a lovely sort of building relationships between these partner women, and a really good show in the end that a lot of people came to see. It was only up for a weekend, but we had tons of people came out to see it and talk about the whole topic of the oppression of women in that part of the world.
Yeah. This is a nice thing about, being an artist and being connected to other artists. You can do projects like that.
Mm-hmm.
Part of something that can move somebody, can move people, can educate, can inform. I think it's valued. That's what an artist does. And I said, when people say, "What does an artist do?" Is it you're flaky, whatever? No, I think not being pretentious about it, just saying artists look at life a little bit differently, and sometimes they can visualize that through their whatever media they use. But when you put 20 people together doing that, it's very powerful
Yes.
because it comes from 20 different directions, all with one focus.
And it was especially because not all of the artists were portrait artists. They interpreted the project a little differently, and you didn't always get a portrait of the woman, but you got some kind of representation in another way.
Oh.
There was some brilliant work came out of it.
Where was that shown?
It was at Marie Lanou's
In
exhibition.
the studio
in
there, up in
Edmonton.
their studio gallery. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's nice to, having public space somewhere to have those places, shows. The library being one, and there's one downtown, the main library. But, waiting 2 years for, getting in line, and it takes a while to be queued
Right.
for that. And you
Yeah.
it's
We were quite grateful. I mean, Marie did do one of the pieces as well. She did have a partnership, but we were very grateful for that space because Maliha was really adamant that specific time had to be when this show went up, was to show that it had been 2 years already that they'd been living. And I mean, they're still in the same situation in that country right now.
Yeah, it's that's the problem when you have a show. It's really booking a space is really, how can you plan 2-3 years ahead?
Right.
You're working on a piece of work as it is, or a series or a show, and it's nice if you can get that pop-up situation in a short time. You can find a space. Here it is, an artist usually paying for the space unless you get a bit of funding,
Right.
but it's rare.
Yep.
Yeah.
And this is another one that's part of a new project that Dean Bausch is putting together called Invisible Winds. And it's speaking about people who are dealing with mental health issues. And so he's asked several portrait artists to have make connections with a couple of people in their lives who are quite open about the mental health struggles that they have. And we've done portraits of them. And each of these people has also written a little bit about the challenges they face with their particular mental illness. So this particular model, Nicole, is someone I worked with, and she deals a lot with anxiety and the sense of being present in the space. And so in the piece, she's sort of dissolving and appearing and disappearing, and to sort of recreate, I hope, that sense of the discomfort of not sort of being able to feel physically present all the time, or what anxiety does to you, and when you're in your daily life.
Yeah, you have this say a bit of a yin yang. There's a agitated side and there's a finished side, and there's
exactly the light side and the dark
side, and there's it's got a you look at it longer and longer because it's difficult working with in a large circle, like and trying to figure how am I going to it focuses your vision, right? You're not worried. You're not looking top, bottom, left, right. You're being told to look in the middle. When you draw that bullseye like that.
Right. And again, this is a foray into abstracting the background in some way, shape, or form as well, and not being too literal with negative space.
I guess, you look at that, drawing a portrait just on a blank page is one thing, but incorporating the proper information in the background that complements what you're doing, or it converses with the actual piece of work, the portrait that you're doing.
And this is the other one that's my contribution to that exhibition. And these are all journals, because this particular subject, the way that she deals with her mental health issues is by journaling. And so when she came to sit for me, she brought this bag full of these journals. So I photographed the journals, so I had that reference. And she's sort of making it so that they're part of each other, that they're not separated.
Right. So these are the spines of the journals that are
Exactly. Yeah.
they feel they're very ribbony, wallpapery, just going in and out. I didn't spend a lot of time looking at this piece. I was putting this program together. I shuffled through the images, but now that you look at that, I love, there's a softness to those spines, the flowers, the things that are there, yet there's this black garment that she's wearing. Yet they kind of go in and out. It's almost like she's behind bars at times, and it almost feels like there's a barrier that she's trying to get through. So it does convey very nicely. But they, I get it anyway. And
yeah, this was
not explaining too much for people, but in my vision of what I normally do.
And this one, Monica, was one I did struggle with a bit because I didn't want her, and she didn't want to be angry in the piece, and so I wanted her to be strong, because she really wanted to be strong and challenging the viewer, but without anger. So it took me a little while to sort of back and forth to find what I felt was the right mood.
Mona, she's a fine artist in herself.
Yes.
Yeah.
And another artist, actually, again, this is Monique Blum, who she was doing the gala design for Raimi Modern a few years back, and she used to have long, flowing, beautiful hair, thick and long and wavy, and as part of a performance for that night, she shaved her head.
Oh my gosh.
Completely. I mean, I actually wanted her sooner than she came to me, because I wanted her like completely bald the way she was, but her hair was still very, very short when she came to me. But this is a woman who is incredibly intense, one of the most lovely people I've ever known, but super strong and super intense. And I wanted to capture that intensity, so she came and sat for me. And then again, this is sort of an investigation of abstracted backgrounds, working with the representational human body and seeing if I can fit those two together.
Yeah, you sense there is a strongness in just her vision, her look. She's not looking at straight at you. It's a very powerful piece. She actually is quite a powerful piece,
and much more so in life too. Like, it's just you're not going to stand in front of this long without being seen by Monique, I don't think.
How big a piece is this piece?
This is probably about I think 3.5 feet by 3 feet, maybe. It's not huge, but it's not tiny.
Yeah, you paint with big brushes.
I do.
Yeah.
And this is actually my vocal teacher.
Okay.
It was just a wonderful woman, and I loved her energy, I loved her warmth, and I just asked her if I could paint her. And so this is really a foray into playing with abstraction and how I can make them fit. So I sort of took some of the information that was actually there and just created shapes and colors to surround her.
Yeah, it feels very spiritual, this piece itself, and you can see the abstractions happening within the garment. There's this cubistic kind of feeling a little bit in the breakup of the garment and the light. But
it's pushing that abstraction again to us, and you might see it in some other work too, to abstract the body or the clothing, and still be quite descriptive with the hands and the face. So again, playing with how much I can get away with those two different approaches.
The little slashes of darks that accent things just enough, not overpowering. It's still a very bright, light piece of work, and there's just those little abstracted little slashes of looseness. It's probably one of your looser pieces that I've seen in the background. Loosening up of the technique.
And this is quite a recent one. Croft, one of my students, who was one of the ones that said that he would come and sit for me. I just thought he was an interesting looking guy, and he came with this lovely striped suit jacket that I got a chance to play with that. But this is another sort of indication of finding the person in reality, although somewhat loose. I mean, because all of my work is just sort of patches of color that fit together to create representational image, but then really playing around with abstraction in the background and with space.
He's an artist in himself, I think, a little bit.
Yeah. Very interested in portraiture himself too, which I think was part of why he came to me and said, "Yes, I'll let you paint me," because he wanted to see what I would do with the portrait of him.
Well, you captured him well. I mean, I know him as a character at drawing session,
Right.
as he comes in and out in English accent and such,
Yes. Yes.
very, very much. And yeah, no, it's lovely, you know. In him, I know him, but not all that well. But you know, the yellow running shoe and the hair and the things, and just that's him. You know, it's just there's
Hmm.
the right little touches that are very personal. And
Hmm.
yeah, and the abstracted pieces are, you know, they're nice little slices that um, I guess they push you a little bit. I guess how much do I put in abstract,
Hmm.
even down to the one triangle going behind the leg and the other one going above the leg of the chair. It creates depth
Yeah,
within the
and this is where this intuition comes in, because I'm not an abstract artist, so I'm quite new to any kind of abstraction. But it becomes not about what I intellectually feel will work. It becomes about what feels right intuitively. And so there was many versions of this background as I was working through the painting until something felt right to me.
no, very true. It's not a no. And there's I guess it's an honesty. I look at that in the piece because personally, I've known this character not to sit and talk with him, but I know him walking through a room and just as subtly as that. But it's kind of how many portraits of family have you done? Like, do you do those as well?
Oh, I do a lot of family. I mean, my daughter's house, my one daughter won't hang any of my paintings, so I stopped doing paintings for her. But the other one, I have two grandchildren, and I have painted my grandchildren quite a lot over
Yeah.
time, and will continue to as they grow. So yeah, I do a lot of work of family.
What do kids think about that when you do that?
Oh, they like it. I mean, when I was doing my mask series, my granddaughter was, I think she was maybe 10 then, and she said, can I be part of your series, Baba? And I said, well, of course you can. So I had to paint her as well. I think they quite like being the
Yeah,
subject of
I think
painting.
they do too. Like seeing how you see them, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And does that change as you do multiple ones of them over the years a little, how they act and react a little bit?
I think that they're not that interested, to be honest with you, Paul. I think it's like, oh, that's a nice painting. Thanks. And then they just, they're not that impressed.
Yeah, we as artists need to be humbled by that a little bit
Exactly.
sometimes. Yeah, we're really not that important. Yeah, we say, "Oh, it's a
Exactly.
really important piece." No, it's not really important.
Exactly.
I agree. Yeah, we, you know, and I think artists try really hard to have people look at their work and yeah, sometimes respond to it in a not always respectful manner, but in an honest manner. You know, and they say, "I like it. I don't like it. Why don't you like it?" Like if you can have those conversations, it's rare to have that. Maybe occasionally in a public space, but the gallerist, if you're in a commercial gallery, don't really. They everything's beautiful and wonderful. We want to sell everything.
Right.
Um, Portraits don't just fly off the wall, though. Like you know,
No, they don't.
yeah.
They don't.
You even so, have you had artists that or people that sit for you that they've commissioned you for these pieces? And
Yeah, it's a real feast and famine thing. I've had years when I've had a lot of commissions, and then years when I only had one or none. So I
yeah,
think like this has been a slow year. Although Croft has decided to purchase his piece, I did one commission earlier in the year, and that was it. So this is speaking of family. This is actually my nephew, Judah, and he had posed for me for one of my classes actually, and I had done some paintings of him. But he had this great head of hair, and I told him I wanted to paint him. And then the next time I saw him, he'd cut his hair, and it was short. And I was like, "No, how could you do this to me?"
you're
So I
supposed to
painted
play
him
me.
like that, and then I think we were unveiling the headstone of my from my dad at like just the year after he'd passed. We're out at the cemetery and in the sunlight, and Judah was there, and his hair had grown back, and he had this posture, and I inadvertently or surreptitiously, I guess, photographed him when he didn't know I was photographing him. And this is a very tall piece. This is like 60 inches, so it's 5 feet tall and then narrow. And I just loved the play of light, and I loved capturing him with his hair. He's a very quiet kind of soul. All my nieces and nephews are both very quiet, or all three of them are very quiet. And then again, this investigation of the abstraction in the background of how can I make these abstracted geometric shapes work in this space with this naturalistic figure.
Changing shapes is a real challenge sometimes too. Some people just love doing stuff on square or off the square horizontals and things. But when you do long rectangles, vertical or horizontal, they're challenging design wise. But it gives him really nice, a long, thin, well fit character. Like he has that personified. Him sitting on a horizontal page would dominate. What else am I going to put in that background?
Yeah. No, I took an old painting off of that stretcher because I couldn't find a stretcher that shape when I decided I wanted to do this painting. Because I knew I wanted it large and I knew I wanted it tall and thin. Because I find working with unusual sizes and shapes is kind of interesting. It just forces you to a different way of thinking. But I knew this one needed to be on a tall, thin canvas, so I removed an old painting off of a stretcher that I had, and so I could use this one.
Sometimes the perspective changes, but you've abstracted the back and things like that. When you do tall vertical pieces, I mean, and mostly people do flowers or different things that are like long, tall things for rooms. But seeing a portrait almost life size, which is basically 5 foot,
right?
I'm guessing he was about at least that.
Oh yeah,
maybe taller.
Yeah, taller than that. No. And I used some of the color indication that was there because there was a little bit of blue sky and there was a little bit of green in the trees and green in the grass. So I did sort of use kind of nods to actual colors that were present at the time, but playing around with shape and where I placed them and that kind of thing.
So have you stayed to the human form as far as portraits go? No pet portraits, no horses and dogs and things, or do you?
I have done the odd number, just few. I did as a gift, I did a portrait of my daughter's dog, and I actually do plan to do one of my other daughter's dog because he's getting quite old, and I got a lovely image of him from the stairs at their house looking down on his dog bed, and he's quite black. So all you really see is the little bits of white that are on him. So I want to play around and see how much of him I can get with just that little bit of information. But I don't do a lot of it. I would be happy to because I find that animals have personalities too, and they have all the same kind of bone structure, and there's lots of interesting things about them. I find people more interesting, but I'm not averse to doing animals. I just haven't done a lot of it.
I remember back in college, they were doing portraiture and skeletal portraiture. So you had not so much. You had to do a skeleton. So of course, excuse me, every student is just up at the skeleton. They're drawing everything, and your submission on Monday morning, right? And this one artist came in, and he presents his stuff, and the poor teacher's jaw just dropped. He said, "What?" And everybody kind of goes around and looks at what he did. And he's got a portrait of a dog in bones sitting in a chair.
Oh,
it was amazing. And he did all the bone structure of the dog, and that was his submission for skeletal.
Oh, cool.
But thinking differently is really important, right? And he didn't tell you had to be a person, right?
Yep. Yep.
He said, I'll do a dog. He said, well, I don't know where he got the reference from for that. But anyway, I guess he ended up becoming a major illustrator for, Batman, Superman, and a bunch of those things.
Oh, wow.
I think Burns was his name in the day, and he was, pounding out depth of perception, just, drawing a hand or a gesture or something coming forward is a difficult thing. A lot of times the perception of creating 3-dimensional from a 2-dimensional item. Right. So do you go through challenges like that where you're trying to push and pull in the
figure? I feel like I should and try to all the time in my practice, because that's what's so interesting about art is that each of us are seeing the world in our own individual way. And I think if you can take that even to more of an extreme so that what you're doing is really unique to the way that you're seeing a person or you're seeing a place or whatever, depending on what your subject matter is, then it starts to become work that's really individually yours and identifiable as yours. And so my whole practice is about just continuing to find more and more and more of that.
Right. No, it's well, that was been great. I mean, we just touched on some of the stuff you're doing. It's just like it's kind of a synopsis of the last 3 years and going through the COVID years a little bit. Some of how those change artists and how we're doing things. But I think it's important, I guess, to converse in this manner with other artists and whoever sees this. I mean, it's great that they can yes, you can do things yourself, and other people who reach out to artists and have them do a portrait of you. That's a great thing to do. And Christmas time's coming, have somebody do something.
Yeah, that would be great. It's been 30 years probably that I've been practicing art, between my drawing practice and moving into a painting practice, and I still get just as excited when I touch my graphite to my canvas for the first time with a new portrait that I did the very first time. It's just something about that particular subject. And it doesn't matter to me if it sells. It doesn't matter if I get commissions. If my kids are going to be the ones that are going to end up with the problem of how many thousands of paintings will be in the basement that they're going to have to get rid of when I die. But I get intrinsically out of it what I need to from doing the work and connecting with humanity on an individual basis. And beyond that, whatever happens, happens.
Yeah, my kids' houses are my gallery. That's right.
Yeah.
Like otherwise, he said, I'm going to bring the red dumpster and put it on the driveway, and everything goes in there. So well, that's the way it is. That's the way it is. I mean, short of that, exactly. I'd love to see my stuff just land in a garage sale and somebody gets it for $2.
Yeah, the idea of having something of yours that's in somebody's living space is really quite a thing. To think that someone is living with your work on a daily basis as part of their daily life is kind of cool.
Well, thank you very much. I think I'll have David come in here in a minute. I think he's sitting in the sideline somewhere there, and we'll close up and everything. Here he is.
I'm just sitting here. There are two things that sort of almost knocked me off my chair. The first one was the one with your dad with the Superman hoodie on.
Isn't that great? Yeah.
That's. I mean, you could spend hours just looking at that, even if you didn't know the gentleman, just who, what, and why. And I think that's what I'm not an artist, but I like art, and I think that's a thing that really excites me.
Well, anything that makes somebody
who, what, and why,
Yeah, as long as if you're enticed to look at a piece longer than 2 seconds, then I feel like we've been successful, because people do walk past art so quickly and don't pay much attention. So if anything makes them stop and go, and look for a little bit longer, you're doing something right.
Yeah.
And your nephew, I see him every day.
Oh,
that's I live on the edge of a big city. You see gentlemen, not quite, but boys of his age.
Yeah.
And it's just like they could all wear the same T-shirt and they would all look the same. If you know what I mean.
It's so true. All across the world. The only thing was missing was the cell phone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's attached to his umbilical cord. Of course, you can't see that. So
well, cell phones being what they are, I think there are actually a lot of shows out now depicting lifestyle with the cell phones, and
you're right.
It might actually, I don't know, like you said, 2 seconds in front of a piece of work, like it's just like scrolling, and and you're trying to slow down, like just be a little analog when things come along. You don't need to, that. And AI is a whole other story in the art world as well.
Yeah.
Well, that's
kind of a lost skill, that spending time and just being quiet.
Yeah,
I have to ask the business end of it before we close up today. Of course, Carol, if you're going to paint me, how much is it going to cost me?
It depends entirely on the medium, whether you'd want a drawing or a painting, and the size. So I price my work according to size, usually about $2.50 per united inch. And that's if they're very small or very large, that formula doesn't work. But united inches is just adding the height plus the width.
Yeah.
And that gives you united inches. And then I multiply that by $2.50. And that would be about, so the large-ish portrait would usually come in around $1,500 or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I was to say, it's always a guesstimate, isn't it? And, so whatever you're prepared to pay for it, whatever it's worth to you.
Exactly.
So, okay. So if anybody wants to get in touch through the show or through Paul, all the information will be available.
Great.
That's it, Paul. I think for another week, another exciting artist. Thank you.
We will have another one next week. But for anybody that wants, all the links are on Artists in Canada, and they can watch them actually on YouTube as well. So that's where our channel is. So on the FOF network. I appreciate it very much. Everybody have a great day.
Thanks so much, both of you.
Yeah.
Thank you, and don't forget everybody to subscribe and like. To
hang in there for a minute, Carol, and we'll talk to you.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Canadian Art Today. Take care, everyone. Bye bye.